Hey guys, it's Pineapple, and today we're doing another top 5 unsolved mysteries in My Hero Academia. If you haven't seen the first video, check it out in the link above, and I should have a link to the video also in the comment section below. But starting off, you know how we do already. Bonus question for you guys. What do you think Eri will be capable of when she's older and has mastered her quirk? And I guess bonus question to the bonus question, will Eri take Recovery Girl's place as the kind of healer at UA? And I mainly ask that because, you know, healing quirks are pretty rare, right? So I guess Eri already goes to UA. It would kind of make sense to a certain extent since she's in their care for her to want to give back to a certain extent. So do you guys think Eri could replace Recovery Girl at UA? And also, what do you think Eri is going to be fully capable of when she's an adult and obviously she's mastered her quirk? Let me know in the comment section below. I dedicate the first few hours after a video is out to go in the comment section. And these videos, you know, are very, very much a dialogue between you and me. We're going to be asking questions, answering questions, going back and forth. So if you want to have a conversation with me, if you want to have a question solved or anything like that, drop it in the comment section below or leave your answers, and I'll also be replying to a lot of those because a lot of you guys actually have pretty interesting answers. One more thing before we get started, I want to say that I'd love for you to subscribe to the channel. We got a lot of new viewers lately thanks to our uploading, and obviously I would like for you to stay. So please subscribe. You don't have to like the video, even though I would appreciate that because it helps us out. But subscribe and make sure you dedicate yourself to coming back, and that's going to keep me pushing and make sure I dedicate myself to coming back and making sure that I have new content for you guys. So please, if you enjoy the content that we put out, please subscribe. I know a lot of you guys are missing like the popsicle stick figures and everything like that. My hard drive broke, you know, it's kind of been a hard time, but I'm replacing all those files and doing all that stuff. But I do feel really good about like the face cam content and letting you guys see me and getting some of my personality out there. So hope you guys are enjoying that. For anyone that's not, I'm sorry for putting you through it, but let's get through it together. So let's get started with another 5 unsolved mysteries in My Hero Academia. Number 1 is going to be, is there more to Compress's storyline than just his OG Haruma family reveal? And will it matter? So if you're not caught up to date with My Hero Academia, or you don't have to necessarily be completely caught up to date, but if you're not caught up at least with the end of the war arc, right, which was the last war arc, we know that there is a character named OG Haruma who Compress is related to, right? It was this thief that we heard about earlier on in the series, not early on, but I guess earlier. I believe it was like around it might have been around the Culture Festival or somewhere around that kind of period, where we have 3 specific characters mentioned. It was like All For One, Destro, the original Destro from the Metal Liberation Army, and OG Haruma. These were like 3 notable villains in history. And OG Haruma kind of, we didn't really have a complete understanding of what he might have done. A lot of people thought he might have been a magician. A lot of people thought he might have been like a Robin Hood style character, and that's what it ended up actually being. That OG Haruma was this villain who was effectively like a Robin Hood style character who went around doing very Robin Hood things, you know, stealing from the rich, giving to the poor. But that would, I assume, come with like the love of the people, right? As long as he wasn't doing it with extremely dangerous means, which I mean, maybe he was to be listed alongside All For One, right? Like maybe this guy was like, sure, yeah, you know, I'm going to give all the proceeds of what I take from this crime to the people. But this crime is about to be crazy. There's going to be explosions. We're doing everything. This building, gone. Like, that is the kind of thing that, like, I wonder if OG Haruma was into, or what kind of quirk did OG Haruma have, right? Like that's another kind of question I have, because maybe if Compress is in the same family, you could assume that OG Haruma had a similar quirk where you could take things and, like, you know, that kind of made him a good thief, or you could pretty much just go up to anything and just take it, right? Turn into a little marble and take it with you. That is the perfect quirk for a thief, obviously, who's going to be taking around large amounts of money or valuable items. But as much as I appreciate this tie between Compress and OG Haruma, because obviously I needed Compress to be a little important and do something in the series, just like I needed all the villains to kind of pull their weight to a certain extent, is that going to matter outside of the short reveal that we had in that war arc, right, where Compress takes his mask off and he's like, everyone else is hiding their family secret, time for me to show my family secret? And I mean, cool, but what else? Like, what is that? How is that going to come into play? Does Compress have like some long kind of hidden vault of like important things that might be important in the final arc, like items or artifacts or anything? Does Compress have like an immense amount of wealth like that he got from that situation? Like, is there maybe like a cult of OG Haruma followers that maybe would support Compress if they knew who he was? Like, what is the relevance and what is the reason for the way that the Compress bloodline storyline was revealed, right? Like, it happened, it was nice, we got to see Compress's face, but it kind of just feels like it was like a, and now this, instead of like having true meaning and purpose. So I wonder where that's gonna go. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Is there more to Mr. Compress's storyline than just his OG Haruma family reveal? And is that gonna matter? The second unsolved mystery left to discover in My Hero Academia is where is Koichi in the main series? If you aren't familiar with the My Hero Academia spinoff, My Hero Academia Vigilantes, it follows the story of a character named Koichi Himawari, and it's set a few years before the beginning of My Hero Academia. I believe like not many, but over the course of the series, we have had like various time jumps and like kind of like characters aging, right? So we know that we are getting closer and closer and closer and closer to the My Hero Academia timeline. And so far, we only have a couple chapters left maybe, but so far it seems like the main character in the series has survived most of the danger and everything like that. So that leaves me wondering why we haven't seen Koichi in the main series of My Hero Academia. Now, the obvious outside of narrative answer is going to be, you know, if we showed him in My Hero Academia anytime before the My Hero Academia Vigilantes manga ended, then it would kind of ruin all the tension for any future moments of, you know, Koichi battling in My Hero Academia Vigilantes, because you would know that he's not gonna, you know, die. He's gonna be okay, right? But I feel like I like searching for like in-universe reasons for stuff like that, right? Because I don't like when outside stuff kind of gets in the way of a story being told. So there was a section in My Hero Academia where I was really, if you would have asked me to bet $1,000, which I didn't have, I would have bet it that Koichi was going to show up in the villain hunt arc. It made perfect sense to me. Deku was out being a vigilante. He was out going to various towns and stuff like that and freeing them of villains. We know that villains are spread all throughout Japan. To me, it just made sense that Deku would have ended up in Naruhara at some point, which is the main town that we see in Vigilantes, and he would have come across a hero wearing an All Might hoodie and suddenly been brought back from, like, not completely brought back obviously from his like sad state, but like seeing another person out there who believes in All Might doing something similar, or at least taking care of their local neighborhood, even though I don't think he would entirely be down with that because he would want to do it himself, because that's very much what he was on in that arc. I feel like that moment of being saved or seeing someone saving someone else wearing an All Might hoodie, which is what we know that Koichi wears as his hero costume, that would be really awesome. And just the two of them having any sort of conversation would be the culmination of like what feels like years and years of buildup. So I was really hoping that he was going to show up in the villain hunt arc or the Vigilante Deku arc, but he didn't end up showing up. He didn't end up showing up when all of Japan pretty much went to UA and, or, you know, various shelters and stuff like that. I was hoping maybe he would run into Deku's mom, because I believe he saved Deku's mom or like helped her with something very briefly in the beginning of My Hero Academia Vigilantes. Like I think he helps her like a falling grocery bag or something like that, and it's a funny little Easter egg. I feel like it'd be funny if, you know, he recognized her or something like that and was like, hey, you're that lady from before, and, you know, maybe they kind of stick together before Izuku gets back, and then they could have like a kind of a meeting about like, oh, my son likes All Might too, he's kind of like a super fan like yourself. But I guess the greater question that I'm trying to ask here is, do you think Koichi stopped being a vigilante? Right? Like if we didn't see him taking down, you know, villains in Naruhara during the villain hunt arc, could he have been one of the people that lost their lives in that section of the story? Or do you think he just stopped being a vigilante and kind of retired to having a peaceful life and didn't want to go back into the streets? And but I don't know if I believe that, right? I feel like if Naruhara was ever in danger, the Crawler is definitely coming out. That is their hero, you know what I mean? So I don't know. I really hope that we see him. Do you think we're going to see Koichi before the end of the series, especially if Vigilantes ends first, right? And they don't have to worry anymore about like ruining the tension or anything. Do you think we're going to see Koichi in the end of My Hero Academia anywhere? And if so, where would you put him? Right? Where, not just where do you think he's going to be? Where would you personally insert Koichi into the main series of My Hero Academia, and specifically in this last war arc? Like, what would you do with him? I want to know. The third unsolved mystery in My Hero Academia that we have left to solve before the end of the series is a big one. We all know it. We're all thinking about it to a certain extent. It's on the back of everyone's minds or on the front. What will the second user's quirk be? The second one for all user, right? What is his quirk going to be? Now, this is a very heated kind of argument in the fandom. A lot of people think that it is some sort of projectile, right? A lot of people think it's explosion because of the Bakugo time travel theory. Also because of that theory, a lot of people think that it's time travel. But I'm going to say tried and true, obviously, to what I've been saying for a while, that I think it's some sort of laser. I think it's either some sort of laser or it's what I would like it to be, which is like a kind of push and pull beam or like a tractor kind of, you know, like the ability to kind of Shinra Tensei and Bansho Tenin. If you, I'm getting really nerdy because I don't remember the English names of those techniques from Naruto. Pain has the ability to pretty much push and pull you, or I guess all the Rinnegan users to a certain extent have that ability. I felt like that would be a really cool quirk for Deku to have, because his issue to a certain extent is he's a very middle kind of close range fighter, and if people get a little far away from him, they could really kind of easily pick him off to a certain extent if they could deal with his speed. I know Nagant is a good example of like him kind of getting over that, right? But I feel like there could be other situations where quirk users have like laser beams or anything that might be a little difficult for Deku to dodge, and I feel like having the ability to keep a person from getting away from you, right, in a very like Hajime no Ippo sense, having the ability to like know that you are a middle / close range fighter and being able to keep your opponent in that range is very, very important, and being able to push them away or push their attacks away or push any projectiles away that they have when they are far away, right, with the push ability would also be really cool. And obviously, since it would be super powered by One For All, it would be like busted. And that kind of goes in line with what Deku tried to do in the recent chapter, where in the recent chapter of My Hero Academia, I believe it was like 2 or 3 chapters ago, we got confirmation that Deku did try to use his second quirk to make himself go faster in his kind of flight across the ocean, right, to get back to UA. He's flying from a small island where, you know, there's an aquarium and everything, where Plus Ultra Whale Man, Gang Orca, is fighting against Toga. Deku's flying from there to UA, and one of the things that he tried to do was use the second quirk to make him go faster, and he kind of like clenched his hand, and that to me again makes me think it's gonna be something like the ability to like push or pull, or a laser beam. Much more likely, I think it's going to just be a laser, right? If we're all just being like grounded and lowering our expectations a little bit, I think it's just gonna be a giant fire and a laser beam. But you know, it's anyone's guess honestly, because these quirks, in my opinion, have been getting less weird as you've kind of counted down to the original user, right? You have like Black Whip and Danger Sense, which are kind of like weird quirks. Then you have Smoke, which is kind of just a smoke bomb. Flight, I guess, is kind of the outlier there, because Flight is a little more recent, and that's kind of a fairly simple quirk. It's just omnidirectional movement, or float, I guess I should call it, not flight. But I think the second user's quirk is going to be a rather simple one, right? A rather simple laser beam quirk, potentially way too powerful, since it's the first quirk that was put into One For All after the first users, you know, after the first user initially had the quirk. So since it's been there the longest, I think it's going to be supercharged the most, and that potentially poses a danger to Deku's arm, because we know Deku's arms aren't at 100%. He can't handle 100%. We keep having it pointed out to us that Deku's arms can't handle 100% for very long and everything like that. So what better way to kind of make him use 100% than have 100% laser beam, right? And to pretty much effectively wipe away All For One. And I think that kind of goes back to a question that I had in my video, my last video that I just uploaded about Aoyama's story, right? Not to take an entire aside, but if Deku's second quirk is going to be a laser beam, I feel like that gives you an ample opportunity to do something very, very interesting with Aoyama, right? To kind of have like a, not a father-son Kamehameha kind of moment, but like something in that vein, like a friend laser beam moment, right? Where you have Aoyama and Deku both using their lasers against a key character at the same time. I feel like that would be really cool, because it's kind of like a, you know, you can still be a hero. Deku, obviously, that's part of his major thing, you know, being told that he can still be a hero. So I think Deku kind of clearing the way for Aoyama to still be a hero by using their laser beams and kind of like showing out, or maybe even giving Aoyama the credit for the laser beam or something like that, would be a really, really cool thing for him to do at the end of the series. And yeah, that is the question though. What is the second user's quirk, and what will it be? Do you think it's going to be a laser beam? Do you think it's going to be time travel? Do you think it's going to be explosion? Or do you think it's going to be something entirely different, right? Something that I have enlisted here in the video. The fourth unsolved mystery in My Hero Academia is, what was All For One's childhood like, and was he born twisted, or did something happen? Now, this is a very, very interesting thing, because this is something that could just be left as a mystery, but I feel like I kind of want to see this, right? We have seen little bits and pieces of, there were these two brothers, they read this comic book, both of them took very, very different interpretations of this comic, and one of them became a giant villain, right? Like, one of them didn't read the full story, didn't really get the message of the story, and clearly became a giant monster who generationally now is kind of banking on ruling the world because they read a comic book, and they want to be like the villain in the comic book that also ruled and defeat the villains, or defeat the heroes, right? And you can make the argument that like that in and of itself kind of proves that maybe All For One was born a little twisted, right? Because that was his interpretation of the story, to do all those things. But you have to remember that quirks very, very much affect a person's personality, right? I know we talk about that for various characters in the series, but it doesn't really get talked about for All For One all that much, right? All For One has a quirk that lets him take what belongs to other people. You You know what I mean? So I feel like from the get-go, he was kind of maybe doomed to kind of be an a-hole, right? Like I think to a certain extent that could be the case, but that doesn't necessarily mean that he was born a bad person, right? Like I think there is a viable path forward for All For One, not right now, not anymore, Lord knows, but like from that beginning point, he could have definitely been the kind of person that creates unity amongst people. And like, you know, it is kind of the ultimate unifying quirk, where if someone doesn't want to have a quirk, you can take it away from them and let them live a normal life. You can, you know, give someone a quirk momentarily and switch theirs and kind of like create the perfect plan and perfect scenario to kind of get something done. And like we know, part of All For One's plan is like, you know, generating water and generating like, you know, natural resources via quirks, and having the ability to do that when we can't do that anymore. You know, there's a lot of non-renewable resources on this planet that it would be nice if we could just have someone with a superpower refill our stocks of those things. You know, you definitely could see how All For One could go about kind of bringing world peace. He could feed people, he could make infinite food, he could pretty much do whatever he wanted to a certain extent. I don't know if I just made it up that he has the ability to make infinite food now that I think about it. Like sure, crops and all that stuff, but do you think All For One has like a food quirk? Like he just like could make like a cream puff in his hand and eat it? Because I feel like that would be a pretty sweet quirk, not gonna lie. It's just the snacks quirk, you know? Maybe that's what Lunch Rush has. Maybe he's not actually cooking anything. That's the true conspiracy in My Hero Academia. Lunch Rush isn't making anything. He's just boop, he's pretending to cook. That man running around, he ain't doing that, he tricking y'all. But again, like I'm saying, I do want to see some more of All For One's backstory, right? There's some very specific moments in the series that I want to see from All For One's perspective, like finding Tenko, finding Dabi, all his fights against all the One For All users, right? Like him reading the comic book, his parents and stuff like that. I really, really, really want to know what All For One and Yoichi's parents were like. I have to know what their quirks were and what they were like, right? Before the end of the series, and I don't think I'm going to get that. But that is an interesting thing that I think we have left to discover in the series. Like, what was All For One's childhood like specifically, and what kind of person was he before he really started going off the deep end, right? And was there any hope for him maybe to be a unifier instead of a divider? Or I guess he is unifying people, but for all the wrong purposes and through all the wrong means. And the final unsolved mystery for this video in My Hero Academia is going to be, will Astro make an appearance in My Hero Academia? Now, some of you are hearing this question and you're like, what? Who is that? Did you say Asta? Is Asta gonna be what would that be? What would that do? No one has magic, Pineapple. I'm not talking about Asta. I said Astro. Astro is a character from one of Kohei Horikoshi's previous manga called Barrage. It's a very short manga. I believe it got canceled. And it's about a young boy named Astro who gets switched with a prince who's pretty much his twin. And he has to come into his own as a ruler while also having this legendary power, or I guess really this item called the Org. And it's pretty much this gauntlet slash trident slash weapon that pretty much lets him do a lot of things. It's the kind of thing that I kind of wish was one of Deku's quirks, right? Just having the Org as Deku's quirk, as like maybe his final quirk that he got. But we know that it's not going to be something like that. I'm pretty sure, right? Because we saw that the second user had kind of like gauntlets that looked like they were just kind of like put on, you know what I mean? It doesn't look like it's part of his body in the quirk dimension. So again, I'm wondering if Astro was going to make an appearance in My Hero Academia. And the reason that I asked that, it's not just because we've seen a bunch of Horikoshi's previous characters making it into the series, making cameo appearances and various stuff like that, or becoming pro heroes, funny enough, like Plus Ultra Wellman Gang Orca himself. It's also because I believe in the volume 31 extras, it might have been volume 31 or volume 30, but I think it was volume 31. In the volume 31 extras, we saw that it seemed like Astro was meant to make an appearance. There was like this page that we got a bunch of like draft sketches and stuff like that from volume 31, where we saw like a Chaco scene where she was talking to the civilians of the loudspeaker. We saw Deku and his friends kind of coming to hug him and everything. And this was all before any of that stuff actually happened in the manga. We saw Star and Stripes' initial design. She was meant to be a dude, I believe. We saw a couple things like that, right? That we hadn't seen yet in the manga. And it was kind of the first time we saw something from Horikoshi that teased stuff future in the manga, just kind of based on sketches and stuff like that. But one of the only things that I don't think we saw actually come to fruition from those sketches in volume 31 was Astro and maybe even Tiamat, right? I don't remember if Tiamat was there, but I remember at the very least Astro did have like a kind of redesigned design, he looked a little like kind of up to date in the Horikoshi's new art style, but like it definitely seemed like Horikoshi was intending on giving Astro a cameo in My Hero Academia, but it doesn't seem like it ever ended up happening, right? Unless maybe he was in the background somewhere and I didn't see it, or maybe it just actually still has not happened yet and he pushed it back a little further. The closest thing we got was, I believe, the rockets that were used by the USA in My Hero Academia against Shigaraki were named Tiamat, right? Which is the other character in Horikoshi's last work, Barrage. Kind of looks like Aizawa. I believe he has like reddish hair, a little floofier, has like a little chin beard, but he looks like Aizawa to a certain extent. And those missiles were named after him, right? So there obviously is a little bit of a want from Horikoshi to work those characters in, even in like the smallest way, and maybe that's kind of what he settled on, just including Tiamat's name and kind of doing that name drop for Star's missiles. But I really do hope that we see Astro, like at some point. Like he could just be a random pro hero that we see getting a little bit of focus. But I know that's kind of people's problem with Horikoshi, that he introduces a lot of cool characters and he doesn't go on to do anything with them. And now we're here at the end of the series. It's not really the time to introduce new characters. So I guess maybe that might have been like a thing from his editor, or maybe that was like an internal thought that it's kind of too late to start introducing characters again. I'm already kind of pushing it with Star and Stripe. There's going to be a little backlash on me introducing this important character this far late in the series. So let me not try it and do another one, right? And it just introduce a character from my previous manga. If we're going to start doing that, I might as well just let the bunny back in, right? Also, and just do all that, because, you know, maybe that's kind of the mindset that he went to for not including Astro. But regardless, I think it's an interesting question. I think it'll be interesting to see if we still do end up seeing Astro make an appearance in the main series. And if you're interested in anything that I'm talking about that character, right, please go read Barrage. It's a very short read. Just search up Astro Barrage chapter 1 or something like that. You'll be able to find the first chapter somewhere. It might be on Viz. I'm not sure. That's the only reason I'm not just offhand saying go to Viz and read it. But wherever you're able to find it, definitely read it. It's Horikoshi's last work, I believe, before My Hero Academia. I think it was the most recent one. I don't think the Zoo manga was more recent than that, but I might be wrong. But either way, it's one of Horikoshi's mangas. Obviously, you should check it out if you like Horikoshi's writing to see where his head was before My Hero Academia. And yeah, that's another top 5 unsolved mysteries left to solve in My Hero Academia. If you haven't seen the first part, of course, obviously check in the comment section below and you will see a link to it so you can keep in track with the whole kind of series playlist. I might be uploading one of these videos again soon if you guys hit that 500 like goal like you did last time. That's why this video came out so quick, because you guys are really quick about hitting that like goal. So I want to stay true to all my promises, and I'm going to stay true to this one. 500 likes and we're going to have the next part of the video come out. And also, not going to lie, I kind of want to see 150 comments too. So let's see if we can hit both of those markers, and we'll get the next video up, and I'll do them and get them out as soon as you guys hit that goal. So this is Pineapple counting on you guys to reach that number if you want to see the next part of the video, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.